Hello everyone, welcome back. This is the data video for launch number 3, mission number 4, and video number 5. This is the video on all the data, what happened behind the scenes, and most of you are here to find out what happened to the cops. Buckle up everybody, because this is a long video, and at the beginning we're going to be talking about the cops. Next we're going to be talking about what we improved from last flight, and how last flight even went. Then we're going to be talking about what happened this flight, and we're going to be talking about what we're doing next flight. So get ready, because this is going to be a long video. Now, we're going to be talking about why the cops got involved, because let's be honest, that's why most of you are here anyway. So the rocket launched and it went perfectly. The problem was when the winds picked up and carried it. As it was descending with its parachute, the wind caught it and moved it east. It landed on a nearby roof. This was a problem because obvious reasons. So me and a couple friends and my brothers went to go knock on the door and ask if we could retrieve our rocket. Now, we knocked on the door and a couple minutes later got no response, so we knocked again, and the guy looked out the window and quickly closed it. We don't exactly know why he was so afraid, but I'm assuming it's because it was late at night and it's an old retirement community and a bunch of teenagers on your doorstep isn't exactly normal. But anyway, we got a call back from somebody back at the launch pad, and they said that the cops were there, so don't walk away just yet. We can talk to them. So we talked to the cops, and he was pretty cool. He actually did rockets when he was a kid, and he was more than happy. Talked to the homeowners, and they actually, after talking a bit, let us get the rocket off the roof. They even offered us our ladder, and we climbed up there, and we pulled it off. Now let's talk about last launch. Now, I really did notice this because of a lot of comments on the channel, but most of you guys didn't get to learn anything about last launch, and I'm going to fix that right now, right here, right now. Now, what went wrong with last launch? Now, to put it easy, what went wrong with last launch is the motor wasn't powerful enough. Why is this such a big issue? Well, when the rocket launches, it needs a decent amount of altitude for the parachute to deploy. It goes up, and then the parachute has a couple seconds before it deploys. If those couple seconds aren't up, it'll hit the ground before the parachute can deploy. And the problem was the motor that we rented on last time wasn't powerful enough. The motor we rented on last time is called an Estes E12-4 motor. To fix this, we used a much more powerful motor this flight. Precisely, we used an Aerotech F32-4T rocket motor. This is more than double the thrust of the last launch, so we got all the altitude we needed and the parachute deployed just in time. It was great. Now, last launch we had a couple bit of damages we needed to repair for this launch. Now, there are a few, so I'll run through them. Now, the damages we had were 1, the nose cone. As you can see, it's broken in a couple parts and it's a little worse for wear. So we can't fly this. It's a big problem. So this flight we needed a new nose cone. We'll get to this in a minute, see why this was the reason that it took 6 months to get out this video. So I'll talk about that in a minute. The second problem was the top of the rocket. Now the very top, the nose cone was here, and it had crushed when it hit the ground. Now the problem with this is that, well, I shouldn't have to explain why this is a problem. Now I didn't want to buy any new tubes. So how did I get this to work for this launch? What I did is I took the original tube from the first launch, the broken tube on the bottom, where the fins were. I cut off the section that I couldn't use, and there was just a long enough section that was intact that I could use for this launch. I screwed this on, and it worked great after a new coat of paint and some stickers. Looks great. Now, the reason I did this is to save money, because I don't want to spend more money on new tubes when I have one lying around. Just needs a little bit of paint and a little bit of sanding and we're good. So after I put that tube on, we were all good, so should be good, right? Wrong. We needed a nose cone still. Now, to talk about the nose cones real quick, you'll see that I have 4 nose cones next to me. This is the very first nose cone we ever made. Now this does not actually fly, it's not even the right size for the rocket, it was just a proof of concept, see if I liked the shape. And I did. So I carried that on to the second design. The second design is this one. This is the nose cone we ended up using, and it's the second iteration. This one flew on the static fire. It flew on the first flight and didn't break, but then it broke on the second. So I had a problem. I needed the nose cone, and I could have just 3D printed one on my printer right here. Right? Wrong. My 3D printer was broken. I don't exactly know why, but something with the motherboard made it to it it don't work. It broke. It don't work. So I did not want to spend the money on a repair or a new motherboard, so I decided I'll just put it off and do that later. And I honestly would have been better if I had just bought it in the first place, but here we are. So without a 3D printer, I needed to figure out how to get a nose cone. There are many ways I could have gotten the nose cone, but I needed it to be 3D printed, so I was a little bit limited. I reached out to everybody I knew who may have a 3D printer, and turns out not many people have 3D printers in my area, so that was a bit of a problem. And I thought, well, what if I order it online? Now this was a bit expensive, but I was willing to do it because I was crunched on time and we really needed to get a launch. I stumbled across a company called JLC PCB, and they make printed circuit boards, and I bought products from them before, and they recently started 3D printing. So I thought it was good to bet through there, and I uploaded the file and I sent it to them, and then they sent me this. Now it looks pretty fine from the outside, but when you look on this side, you can see it's warped, and come to believe it's actually not even the right size. It's way undersized, and this wasn't going to work at all for this rocket. So because that nose cone didn't work, I needed to find another solution. And my engineering teacher at the high school I attend said, hey, I can 3D print it. So what this is. This is the third iteration nose cone, and it is pretty much the same as the second. The only difference is I decided to sand it a bunch and paint it so it's really smooth and a nice texture. It's a little bit damaged now from landing on a roof. Nothing on this rocket was designed to land on a roof, so that's why there were damages this time, but I'll be building it a little bit stronger for next flight. It's a little bit damaged here and scraped up a bit, but that's okay. It'll just be easily fixed for next launch. I won't have to print a new one. So that's the nose cone, and believe it or not, that is the single reason it took me 6 months to make this video, and the reason why it took me so long to launch. So now let's talk about the recovery system. The recovery system is the parachute and the way that it lands on the ground. Now the first part of a recovery system is a tether. This holds both halves of the rocket together. The tether is an anchor on each side of the rocket, each piece, the top and the bottom. The anchor is connected by a piece of paracord and a rubber band. This is not actually a regular rubber band, this is called shock cord. It's a bit thicker, a bit stronger. And what I did was I attached it like this, either end onto each side of the rocket, and when you pull, or when the rocket was being pulled apart, the shock absorption came from this rubber band thing here. Now, this didn't quite work. The paracord barely made it, and here's the reason why. Look right here. You can see that this is different, it's damaged, and this piece broke off. This piece of epoxy and the rest of the rope was attached to this red thing up here, but it kind of stretched and ripped. All it would have taken to not make this flight was just a little bit of a tug, and this would have fallen off and it wouldn't have worked. The reason it broke is because, again, I cut another corner, and it keeps coming back to bite me, and I just keep cutting corners, so that's not happening anymore. What I did was, this is the connector that it's attached to the rocket, and I designed it to take force when you pull down this way. But that's not how I mounted it in the rocket. One end was like this, and that was good, but the other end was mounted like this. It's not meant to take stress in this direction, and because of that, it broke and ripped part of the rope. Next flight, we will be upgrading to Kevlar, which can hold 300 pounds in the cord that I'm ordering. It's really cheap, so it's a better option, and it will ensure that it doesn't break next time. Next up on the recovery system is our parachute. Now, the last flights we've been running this parachute. This parachute is made out of a $2 tablecloth from the dollar store, and well, it's a little bit worse for its wear. It's got rips all over, and it cannot handle heat well, so we're gonna throw this in the trash. It cost me $2 to make, and I thought it would work, and the reality is it just wouldn't work. This flight I upgraded to a ripstop nylon parachute. Ripstop nylon is very strong. This could totally hold the weight of the rocket. This wouldn't rip as easily either. It can also handle a little bit heat better, and I was very confident this was going to work. It has these lines that come off of it, and these lines here attach to this little hook here, which I attached to that cord I showed you a minute ago. Now, this does come with a price. The Ripstop nylon parachute cost around $25, and the last parachute cost me $2. Even though it cost more, it's worth it because even though it cost more, it's totally worth it because it allowed us to land, and this is going to last a lot longer. The fins are exactly the same as the last launch. The only difference is they broke a little bit because they hit a roof. Again, nothing here was designed to hit a roof. They were all designed to land in dirt or grass, so they took a little bit more of a sharp load than they were supposed to. Now, covering the parachute is this. This is called wadding. Wadding can be made out of fabric or it can be made out of paper. This one here is paper, and it is made from toilet paper that has been soaked in a baking soda solution. Baking soda is not flammable. It's actually flame retardant. When you heat it, it puts out carbon dioxide gas. Carbon dioxide gas puts out the flames, so it doesn't actually catch on fire at any point during the flight. Let's talk about the motor we used. Again, last flight we ran an E12-4 rocket motor. Now the difference between last flight and this flight is this one is more than double the power. Now, next flight, we're going to be running one that's even more power. This is double this flight. So, you can see the size comparison here. So stay tuned for that one if you want to see that. It's going to be pretty impressive. The motor is put in the rocket through this. This is a motor mount. It is 3D printed and very poorly designed. It is the same one for the static fire and Flight 1 and 2, and it really didn't, it's not, no, muy bad, not a good mount. It melted and it broke, and this is just, I keep reprinting it. Bad design choice. We're not doing this again. We're going to put new ones in the next flight. Next flight, we are not going to be using that. We're going to be switching to these. These are new motor mounts I made, and I decided to use this ISO grid pattern because it's really strong and it's also really light. So this should be able to handle load really well, and our rocket should totally launch successfully. Now, there are a few more improvements we had from last launch as well. The main one being a new launch rod. This launch rod is 6 feet tall and made of mild steel. The reason you have a launch rod is you need to let the rocket build up speed and go straight at the same time before the fins can take over, making the rocket go straight. Now, how I made this is I took 3/16 inch, 48 inch sections of mild steel rod from Home Depot. I took them and I cut one of them to the right length, and then I welded these two together in my high school welding shop. The teacher was kind enough to let me use the welder for this project, so big thanks to him if he's watching this right now. This is a lot stronger, it's more sturdy, and it's a lot longer, and it performed a lot better this launch than any of the other launches. The launch pad is exactly the same, there's no difference whatsoever. The only other thing we changed is this is a little stand for the rocket. How this thing works is the rocket sits on top. This gives it a flat surface to sit on that it's not going to move around or shake when the wind blows. Because last flights we've been using small plastic stilts and they were not very stable whatsoever. Other thing that this does is it elevates the rocket a bit up, so that way the cords for the ignition system go in these two holes on the side here. They are elevated so they're not being squished against the launch pad, which increases the wear. So this overall improves the distance and the squishing of the wires. It's just more reliable, it's a bit better, and it looks nice too. Let's talk about where I launched it. Now, originally I was actually going to launch this at the same place I have been, but there was a small problem with that. I was going to launch it at Kerry Blake Park in Sequim, which is where I have been launching it. But I felt a little sketched out after I got pictures taken from like way across the parking lot, and he quickly drove away in his car, so I don't know exactly what happened, but a little sketchy. Besides, it was too small of a field for this launch, so I needed to upgrade. Now, the first place I looked was my high school. Now, I was going to launch here, and I talked to the principal, and he was totally awesome with it. He was like, yeah, we can launch it, it's going to be great. So I had a meeting with him, and everything went well, but then he stopped responding to my emails. we got some information that the property manager of the school thought it might be illegal to launch the rocket there. Now, I want to be clear. I checked federal documents, I checked state documents, and I also checked county and city documents. I couldn't find anywhere that it was illegal. I looked for like a week and I couldn't find anything that it was illegal, but I didn't want to get into a big argument with the principal, so I had to find another place. So I had one more idea, and that was the church that I attend. There was a big field out back, so I asked the youth pastor if I could launch there. He was really awesome with it, and he said, yeah, you could totally do it. So we talked to the property manager. Property manager said it was good, so we launched at Sequim Community Church on June 20th. Now, we arrived at around sunset. It was looking really nice. The weather had been great. We had been waiting weeks for the right weather, and a lot of people actually attended this flight. We had 15 people that showed up. So I really want to thank everybody that went there and supported me. You guys are awesome. Now, one of the people that attended among the 15 was Jack. Now, if you remember Jack from the first flight, he almost got crushed by the rocket. And he was also there in second flight, just farther away so he wouldn't get hit. And then the third flight today, he was also here, so that was good. Then I pushed the launch button. We had 10 seconds to walk away before it launched. When the launch computer ignited the rocket motor, there was a small puff of smoke from the bottom of the rocket, and then it just shot off. It shot off so fast. I did the math, and it was about 60 meters per second, which is, I'm not going to convert that to miles per hour, but that's fast. Now, because it went so fast and so high, it all worked. Shortly after the launch, everybody was screaming, it was happy. But we waited. There was this moment of silence for the parachute to deploy. At 4 seconds, the parachute deployed. There was a loud cheer and everybody was really happy that this has worked. I was pretty happy that this all worked because I've been waiting months for this to launch, and I've been waiting months to get this to work right. I've been over a year in the design process to get this to launch successfully. It then began its slow descent on its parachute down, and then the small gust of wind pushed it over into a neighbor's house, and the rest is history. So that's pretty much how the launch went.
Oh, I forgot. I don't know where we're at. See that purple flag? That's so cool. You predicted it like perfectly.
Can I go get the rocket?
Oh, and it's in the field.
Is it in the field or is it?
Oh!
Okay, so that was pretty cool, but let's go over it again to kind of explain how it worked.
I don't know where we're at.
The timer is counting down at this moment, and then it launches. It shoots up really fast at around 60 meters per second, and then as it slows down, it pitches over, and the wind starts to carry it a bit. We all wait, and then the parachute deploys here, and it starts its slow descent down. Now the wind is carrying it at this moment, and it's drifting just barely out of our field, and you'll see in a second here, it's going to crash, or rather have a hard landing on the house.
Oh, and it's in the field.
Is it in the field or is it?
Oh!
Next, we have the drone footage that it took us forever to make. You can see in the background all the people that came to the launch and the mountainscape behind us. This is a good view of the field that we're in, and this is the church up on your left. This is a nice side view recorded by Isaac Lillyholm. And you'll see it launches. You got a nice view of the sky, and you can see that it didn't go perfectly straight, but it was still okay. This is my favorite shot of the night. It is a close-up in slow motion of the rocket taking off. Right now you can see the smoke coming out of the bottom, and then the bright purple flame coming from that rocket motor. This is the last shot facing northwest. You can see the beautiful sunset that night and the rocket taking off with that smoke trail.
Okay, Keith, we were joking about calling the cops. They did.
Oh. Yeah, make sure you get through. How's the rocket look? Alright, let's see.
Nice.
There.
Does somebody want to grab? So, thank you everybody for watching this video. If you would like a t-shirt like this one here, there's a link in the description, and don't forget we're selling those decals. And thanks for watching. I hope you have a great day. May your skies be blue and your winds be low. This is Isaac from ChemKid. I'll see you in the next video.
Wow, we're all here. We're all here to watch Isaac launch a rocket.
Oh my gosh.
Wow. Look at this. Ladies and gentlemen, let me be the first to say we are making history. It's one small rocket for him, one giant countdown. I'm not doing that anymore.